The 1900s had three total elections, one in 1900, one in 1904, and one in 1908. We're going to talk a little bit about the 1900 election, which was a rematch of the previous election in 1896, McKinley for the Republicans versus Bryan for the Democrats. Imperialism was a hot-button topic during this time with the rise of popularity for the anti-imperialist movement. McKinley was in favor of imperialism, while Bryan was against it. Looking back at this time in history, it can be easy to judge the imperialists as the bad guys and the anti-imperialists as the good guys. And it is true that imperialism is far more harmful than helpful and was ultimately done for the benefit of the invading country rather than the peoples being invaded. However, most people did not know the true extent of the evils of imperialism at this time. Mark Twain himself only changed his mind on imperialism due to actually going to those countries and seeing the horrors for himself. Not everyone in America was ignorant to the horrendous effects of imperialism, but most did not know the full extent of such terrors. While some newspapers would in fact write about the negative effects of imperialism, others would try to justify it. Additionally, many anti-imperialists would use very prejudiced reasons for their anti-imperialism. Some imperialists would give reasons all the way from, we should put America first, and American expansion is necessary for American prosperity, to America is giving these countries technology, infrastructure, law and order, and morals. Read Christianity. It is our responsibility as a developed and powerful nation to help and develop and protect the weaker, less developed nations until they can fend for themselves. While anti-imperialists would give reasons from, America was founded on rebelling against oppressions of imperialism. It would be hypocritical and shameful for America to do exactly what the British were doing to us and worse. 2. We should focus on building up our own country, providing for our own citizens before we send resources to less developed countries. And some anti-imperialists would even argue, imperialism is bad because it makes it easier for undesirables to enter America and weaken the power of the white population/culture. All this to say that, just like in modern times, you'll have people on both sides of almost any political debate who are arguing for or against one position for reasons that could be altruist, even if misguided, or prejudiced. So when we talk about debates such as imperialism in 1900, it's important to take into mind the kind of information and attitudes people could have had during this time. It's easy to label anti-imperialists as the good guys and assume they were all fighting for the freedom of annexed countries, until you realize that even some members of the KKK were anti-imperialist. I think this is something we should keep in mind when we're talking about past politics and culture. Everything should be approached with a healthy dose of nuance because nothing is ever black and white. Anyway, back to the election. Now, McKinley had won the previous election of 1896, and his campaign relied largely on his successes in the previous 4 years, which saw a lot of economic prosperity in winning the Spanish-American War. He promised 4 more years of continued prosperity if he was elected. His vice president, Teddy Roosevelt, was also very popular. He was already a famous war hero thanks to his help in liberating Cuba and the Philippines from Spain. He was also very charismatic and a high-energy speaker that easily won crowds over. McKinley was an imperialist, as he had Spain sign over Philippines in order to gain access to its resources. On the Democratic side was Bryan, who was an anti-imperialist and attacked McKinley's policy with the Philippines, saying that the Spanish tyranny was merely replaced with an American one, and he wanted America to pull out of the Philippines instead of wasting resources and American lives fighting off the Filipino rebellion. He was also an advocate for free silver, which is its own political rabbit hole. Essentially, the free silver movement advocated for the US to adopt a dual metal backing as opposed to just the gold standard. This was very popular in Western states that had large silver deposits, as it would be a great benefit to their economies. It was also popular with farmers and rural debtors for the same reason. They could bring in any silver they had and exchange it for money, so the silver could be sent off to be minted into new coinage. This would increase the currency and would drive up inflation, which would make paying off debts with banks easier, as they would have more money coming in from both the silver and increased crop prices. However, the free silver movement would not be as powerful for his campaign as it was in 1896, when America was still in a depression because McKinley had claimed credit for getting America out of the depression. Additionally, new gold was flowing into the economy, making the threat of deflation, the entire reason why farmers were in so much debt in the first place, less likely. Now, obviously, McKinley won his re-election thanks to the promise of 4 more years of prosperity, along with general support for the Spanish-American War from American people. But who would have I voted for? Well, I would have agreed with just over half my fellow Missourians and voted Democratic, given my closest with the rural community and general concern for the welfare of farmers and small business owners, who would have likely have been in debt to northern creditors thanks to the Depression of 93 to 96. They would have benefited from unlimited minting of silver and the influx of cash flow it would have brought with it. And of course, more money flowing into the state would mean more funds that could be spent on education. However, this would not have been a huge concern for me due to the economy being in such a good state, even with just the gold backing. Either way, things would have slowly improved for rural farmers. It would have just been my belief that silver would have improved things faster. What would have been a big concern for me is imperialism. I would have agreed with the anti-imperialists that the tyranny in the Philippines was as bad when their oppressors were Spanish, and American tyranny was no better. America was founded on fighting for freedom against the British, which sought to control and profit off the American people without giving the same rights as the British people. So it would have been the height of hypocrisy for America to turn around and do, honestly, even worse to the people of the Philippines. A lot worse. Additionally, I would have held the belief that while America could be a force for good in other countries, it would not do so without exploiting the people there in some way as a sort of repayment, and ultimately anything done for the good of the people there would not outweigh the harms done to those people and the destruction to their culture. I would have also agreed that even if American influence really was for the betterment and protection of the people there, America should focus on ensuring its own citizens are well taken care of first before spending money and resources on people who, given the rebellion, did not even want American help anyway. Unfortunately, this would be yet another defeat for Bryan, and the Filipino people's suffering would be prolonged.